Welcome back to the Jimbo Hannon Show at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626, online at jimbotalk.net. Certainly, this looks like another year against the incumbent. We've heard that before, of course, and even in such pivotal years as 1994, 90% of incumbents still won re-election. Nonetheless, it is the kind of year which can give challengers hope, genuine hope, even against perhaps one of the most secure people for re-election who is up this year at the federal level. We're talking about House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She has been a divisive figure nationwide, but very popular back home in her own district. And we're talking with a man tonight who nonetheless feels that it's worthy of a challenge. John Dennis joins us. He is now battling the losing candidate from 08, Dana Walsh, for the Republican nomination. John Dennis's website is johndennis2010.com. John, good evening.
Jim, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Why make this race when the betting odds against you are going to be huge?
It's funny you said that. Nancy Pelosi seems like she's very secure. I would imagine she's actually personally terribly insecure. Why make the race? Well, because so much is at stake. Nancy Pelosi is behind the wheel. She drives the legislative agenda. And I don't think I have any other choice but to challenge her.
I can tell you a tactic that was used a few years ago to some effect, not to a winning effect, I might point out. But it was used nonetheless. Well, I'll get to that one in a moment. First of all, let me just read to you here some of the figures from Nancy Pelosi in her races for Congress here. Let's see here. Winning by, let's just go back to 1992. 82%, 84, 86, 85, 80, 83, 80. And in 08, the only reason she was held to 72% was that she was challenged on the left by Cindy Sheehan, who actually came in second with 16%. The Republican got 10% of the vote. That's Dana Walsh, against whom you will be running for the Republican nomination to challenge Pelosi again. And in terms of expenditures in that last race, Sheehan and Walsh both raised a little over $600,000. Pelosi raised $2.7 million. Those are daunting odds.
Well, you have to look at the caliber of the campaigns that were run, and some of the candidates that Nancy Pelosi has faced from the Republicans have been good people, but they were terribly underfunded. I mean, look at the last race. Dana Walsh, who actually only got about 9.3% of the vote, raised more money than Pelosi's 10 previous Republican opponents combined. And yet she only got 9.3% of the vote, which I might add is the lowest percentage that any Republican has ever received in that race.
Well, what have they done in the past that was not effective, just given the fact, of course, that this district is just overwhelmingly, hugely way left and Democratic? I mean, you could run Mickey Mouse on the Democratic ticket in that district and win.
Mickey Mouse would be a heck of a lot more charming than Nancy Pelosi. Well, we have to break down the mission into what we're trying to do. As a business guy, that's what I do. I don't try and solve problems that aren't there. The problem isn't trying to convert San Francisco from liberalism to conservatism. The mission is to get enough votes to defeat Nancy Pelosi and to find ways to do it. And we are running a totally different type of campaign than the Republicans have seen. I've just spent a few minutes with the Republican Party chair here locally, and they're staggered with the number of petition signatures that we turned in today. They've never heard of any numbers like this before.
Petitions for what?
There are different things you can do in elections to offset fees that you have to pay. And our guys went out door to door for 6 weeks and collected petition signatures and actually connected with the Republican Party. And what that has become, it's now the basis of our precinct operation, a precinct operation that no Republican has ever seen before. In fact, a precinct operation that Nancy Pelosi doesn't have. So we're running a ground operation, a real grassroots, precinct by precinct, door by door, call by call campaign. But combined with that, we're also doing all the 21st century stuff. We have the single most visited website of any campaign in America. So we're trying to run a cutting-edge, world-class campaign across the board. And Jim, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm telling you what I'm doing is I'm running to defeat Nancy Pelosi. I'm running to run right through her, and let's see where the chips fall.
Fair enough. Now, the website, again, in question is johndennis2010.com, johndennis2010.com. Why, of all the websites out there and some really hot races across the country, why would there be that much interest in the race of someone who, admittedly, I think you would agree, is by any method of conventional wisdom measuring a very long shot? Why are they so interested in your website?
Well, I think it starts with the candidate, the opponent, excuse me, but that doesn't explain everything because my opponent in the Republican primary gets about a fraction, maybe a twelfth of the traffic that we get. Part of it also has to deal with the roots that I come from. I'm in what I refer to as the Liberty scene, and it's a pretty active online group to begin with. But also, I think the fact that we're running a campaign to win has people excited in a year where Scott Brown won. And Jim, just so that you know what the problem really is and how we're breaking it down, I don't need to win every Democratic vote in town. I need to win 25%. If I get 25% of the Democrats, if I have the same performance that Scott Brown did with the independents in Massachusetts, and if I get a motivated turnout from the Republicans, I'm going to defeat Nancy Pelosi.
Well, I'm glad you think so. I think that's a positive attitude. I would note that Scott Brown, of course, the only way he had a chance of winning the votes of an awful lot of people in Massachusetts was by being a Republican who was not doctrinaire, by trumpeting that fact, of course, recently proving it in one of the first key votes to come before him. Where do you stand on the scale of moderate to conservative Republicanism?
Well, I would consider myself more of a Barry Goldwater, libertarian, conservative Republican, yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting. The Libertarian last time out got 2% of the vote there in that same district. Let's take a call from Mike in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Good evening.
Jim, I'm going to make you positive.
The gentleman says that he's planning to run a cutting-edge campaign when actually in his first 2 minutes he said that she's an insecure woman and Mickey Mouse is more
charming
character. Is this not just another campaign of personal destruction? Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess fine enough. Okay, the caller
We've done a little fun along the campaign trail. The truth of the matter is I spend very little time talking about Nancy Pelosi. She's a door opener in terms of an introduction, but I don't spend much time. My political philosophy is what we spend most of my time on in the campaign.
Fair enough. All right. In terms of what it is that you're trying to sell here, what are the key issues that you are pushing? I would assume that the economy would be one. I would assume that health care would be another. You tell me, what are the main talking points for John Dennis?
Well, I'm a student of free market economics, and what we are doing is disastrous. The federal government is out of control. It is destroying this country. The federal government has put on each and every one of us $300,000 in debt and unfunded liabilities. Yet 94% of incumbents are reelected, and I don't think 94% of these people deserve to keep their jobs. This is not the sort of performance that I would keep in my business. I'd relieve them of their duties and try and find something somewhere else. Nancy Pelosi has been in the driver's seat for the last 4 years, not to mention the fact that she's been a loud and leading voice in Congress since 1987. This is an unsustainable situation that we're in right now, and yet no one is discussing what America wants to talk about, which is the staggering amount of debt that's out there. And they refuse to do it, and I'm going to pound on it over and over again, and how it's affecting the job markets, how it's creating uncertainty in the business environment, that's preventing businesses from expanding and hiring again. This is all part and parcel of the same thing, which is the federal government overstepping its bounds way beyond the constraints of the Constitution, and that's what we need to start focusing on again.
More to come with our guest, John Dennis. He is fighting for the right to knock off Nancy Pelosi. This sort of thing has happened before. A House Speaker was, in fact, defeated back in